Hi, I'm Julia, and I work with other kids yoga teachers to be confident in what they're offering so they can create a life and a business that is fulfilling for them and aligned with their values. And today I'm going to be talking all about the real truth of working in schools and delivering your yoga or mindfulness or well-being programs within schools. And so let's face it, schools can feel a little bit strange. To teach kids yoga in the school environment, it can feel very like a clash sometimes, because even as both a kids yoga teacher and experienced primary school teacher, I still find teaching yoga in the school environment a little bit weird sometimes. And so it can feel like a kind of collision of two very different worlds. The world of yoga, where we're encouraged to listen to our bodies, we're encouraged to be still, to listen to our inner truth. Um, and then that kind of crashes into the world of schools, where we're encouraged to listen to others and to follow instruction and, frankly, conform, and often ignoring our inner voice and sometimes ignoring our inner messaging as well, our inner needs. And so yeah, there's some tricky things about working in schools, and so I wanted to talk to that today because I don't want to glamorize schools and for people to think, oh, it's just really easy to be in schools. No, there's actually a lot of challenges, and if you yourself have worked in schools, then you may resonate with these. And I don't want you to think, oh, everybody else finds it easy and I find it really tricky, because there are some real challenges in schools, and I'm going to talk to those now, um, in the um, in the spirit of just pure honesty and vulnerability. And so here I go, diving in. Sometimes the space that you have in a school can feel like a ridiculous place to deliver a yoga or mindfulness or a well-being session, because you might get a hall that's like that has a corridor going straight through it with multiple people walking through. In fact, one of the schools, no, actually, all of the schools that I'm in at the moment have corridors going through them, in multiple ways. And so people walk through all the time. You might get a room that is smaller than you thought it was going to be, and you might have some obstacles to navigate around the edges, like some of those crazy, like the dining tables that fold up and they have like the stools attached to them, and they're on the edge. And then you've got the gym mats in the corner and the lunch trolleys, and you've got like, I don't know, a laptop or something like that for the screen, and you've got maybe books around the edges. And it's just, sometimes the space that you're in isn't ideal. You might have food on the floor following a lunch club or a break club or a before school club. You might find that the room is too hot, or you might find it's too loud. I could continue. I've experienced all of these and more, and I'm sure that many people reading this will have many more to add. So that's the actual space. And sometimes the staff can feel like they're being at odds with what it is that you're trying to achieve. So this could look like disrupting the lesson in some way by chatting to somebody in the same room, walking through loudly. I've had people stapling into displays into the wall while I've had a calming session, just sound going on in the background. You might have staff shouting at children, telling them to lie still or stop being silly, or you might have them shouting across the hall at other children who are not even in your lesson. There's just someone shouting across the hall. That can happen sometimes. You might have staff correcting children. No, don't do it like that. She's not doing it like that. You might have people walking on the mats with their shoes on, or you might also have plans changed, timetables changed, different year groups that you weren't expecting, and working in rooms that you weren't expecting, without it being communicated to you and without it being communicated to the other staff. And so that can be a lot, and it can feel really hard when you're in that position. Sometimes actually teaching within the school can feel overwhelming itself too. So the space that you're in can feel overwhelming, the staff of the school can feel overwhelming, and the actual experience of teaching can feel overwhelming too. So it may be because class sizes might be bigger than you're used to. The majority of work in schools I do, in curriculum time, I'm teaching 30 children, sometimes more, sometimes 32. The behaviour of the children may be challenging because there may be behaviour situations that you hadn't really prepared for. You may be working with types of children that you haven't worked with before. There may be special needs happening in there. Just the fact that you've got lots of children all at the same time might be a challenge. So if teaching in the school day, you might also not know where to start with planning your lessons. If it's a curriculum lesson, this might be completely new to you, and you might be thinking, oh no, this was not covered in my training. What do I teach when I'm teaching within the school day? If you're teaching extracurricular classes, you might struggle to think of ideas for ongoing working with the same children. So you may end up working with the same children for like 5 years. How do you come up with lots of new ideas? How do you make it fresh and exciting? Also, managing multiple classes back to back throughout the day, if that's the way it's organised, that might feel overwhelming and exhausting to you. It sounds a nightmare, doesn't it? So you may be wondering, why does Julia choose to work in schools if it sounds like such a nightmare? I have experienced all of this and much more, but I still believe that working within schools is totally worth it. And it's something that I definitely have value for and find value in. And that's because in a school environment, you can reach a wider group of children, a wider range of children than you would in community classes. So the types of families that would bring their children to your kids yoga workshop in the holidays, or your community class that happens in a village hall, for example, or at a local gym, they're going to be different types of families. You will get some of the same children, obviously, but there will be other children that would never get that experience. And having the opportunity within school is really special. And obviously, we want to share it. We know the benefits of these practices of breathing and mindfulness and movement and all of the other well-being strategies that we teach. We know the benefits ourselves. We're very passionate about sharing it so that it makes it more accessible to a wider range of people. So that's my main reason for loving working in schools, is reaching children that you would never normally reach. But I sound like I slated the staff, and I didn't mean it to come across like that. It can feel like they're at odds with you, but actually the schools that I'm in, now that we've got things set up, being part of that community feels really lovely. Being welcomed back every week with people waving at you, the children happy to see you, the staff welcoming you and having a chat in the hallway. It can just make you feel like part of a community, which is sometimes lacking in our chosen job, because being self-employed can feel really lonely if you're working for yourself and there's no other kids yoga teachers who you meet up with. It can be incredibly lonely. So being part of that school community meets that need for kind of affiliation with other people. And my final reason for really loving my work in schools is a more practical reason, and that's that it's more consistent. It's more reliable once those things are set up. The finances are far more predictable, and it's so much better for my nervous system. When I used to do lots of community classes, I found myself really exhausted by all of the marketing and all of the, oh gosh, having to leaflet everywhere, having to just constantly be out there in the world encouraging people to come to my thing. Whereas when you're already within a school community, you don't need to be out there quite so much, which works better for my nervous system and helps me know as well what I'm planning. And also it fits way better into my life because I have my children of my own, and working within the school day and working around school hours matches that in a much better way than the outside of school things that I used to run. So I'm going to say some stuff now that might sound really obvious. And so I apologize if you're listening along and you're like, this is really obvious stuff. But it may sound really simplistic, but I think they're things that are really easy to forget, or maybe that you don't actually necessarily realize. Perhaps you just haven't thought of it in this way before. So the first one is that the schools are really big organizations. So you may perceive it, oh well, it's just teachers and the children, but actually it's a really, really big kind of ecosystem going on there. You've got the office staff, you've got the business managers, you've got the caretakers, you've got the cleaners, you've got the lunchtime supervisors, you've got the dinner time, the chefs, you've got, this is before you even think about the leadership team, the middle leadership team, the teachers, the teaching assistants, the extra people who come in to do specific things, which is probably what you are, but there's also, you know, music people, there's dance people, there's you may have other external agencies coming in. There may be educational psychologists or people coming in to support individual children. You've got the learning mentors within the school. You'll have some staff who are part-time, some staff who are full-time, and the communication across that organisation can just be really huge and really difficult. And also, because it's this ecosystem, everything depends on each other. So there may be an issue happening, for example, in the kitchen, um, or with a caretaker, for example, they may have somebody coming in to test some electrical services, and that impacts on everyone else, and everything impacts on everyone else. And so even with emails and meetings and post-it notes and quick catch-ups in the corridor, miscommunication is really common, and none of it is personal, and these issues are issues for everybody within that school community, and it's frustrating for the staff too. I speak from my position as a previous teacher. I've had lots of roles in schools. I was a part-time teacher, I was a full-time teacher, I was a school leader, I was a tutor that went in and worked with specific groups of children. I've worked with small groups, I've worked with whole class. I've done it all in schools. And I can say with all honesty, communication is an issue for every single person in the school. It's not just you, and it's certainly not personal. So if the communication is lacking, it's because it's tricky in schools to communicate in general and to share that information. And we'll quite often be left out of the loop of something, and it can be easy to feel frustrated by that. But it's not personal, and it's an issue for everyone. Also, the second thing is that people working in schools may have preconceived ideas about what your sessions are about. They may have had some experience of yoga and mindfulness, or they may have had none. They may just not know what it is you're talking about at all, and they may have judgments attached to these things from their own experiences or lack of experiences, and so that's going to shape their expectations of what they think that you're going to deliver, and it's also going to shape their expectations of what they think that you want, which is going to impact on the way that they behave. So for example, if you've got a member of staff who's overly controlling the children, you may perceive that as, oh gosh, that teacher's really taken over here. But actually, it may be that they are just worried for you, and they want it nice and quiet because their perception of yoga is that it's quiet, or their perception of mindfulness is that we need to be silent. And so they may be putting their projections of what they expect onto the children, which may or may not be aligned with what it is you're hoping to achieve. Also, there's lots of things that we ourselves can take for granted. We have our own background in our specialist field, so be that yoga or mindfulness or well-being or whatever it is you're delivering. We often think that everybody knows, oh, it's obvious. So it's obvious that we would not walk on the yoga mats with our shoes on. It's obvious that we wouldn't talk while we're trying to have relaxation. It's obvious that we wouldn't grab children and push their bodies into the shapes. It's not obvious. It's not obvious because those people don't have that experience. And so oftentimes we're not even aware that we're making that assumption that people will know. So just maybe have a little think about, what things do you assume knowledge about that the staff don't have. Another thing is that the children are going to be excited that you're there, and their behavior is going to reflect that. So you're a new person, you've got maybe props, you've got maybe mats, you yourself are new, you might be playing music, you might have, all these things. They're excited by that, and their behavior is going to show that. So I've talked a lot about Wow, lots of stuff. Things that are tough in schools and things to consider about that. And now I'd like to talk about practical ways to manage the difficulties. So, a really key one is clear communication, and that's communication of your expectations and clear understanding of what's expected of you. So before starting your classes, make sure that you're clear about what's being expected of you and have discussions about your needs and expectations too. So be clear about who your main point of contact is for the school. And that will help you be able to contact them if anything arises. When you're working at the school, communicate your needs and expectations clearly with all of the adults and the children. So this might look like being clear about what you need in terms of space and in terms of staff. Are you happy to be left alone? Is it legal for you to be left alone with the children? It's legal for me because I'm also a qualified primary school teacher, and sometimes I'm comfortable depending on the group and depending on whether I know the children, lots of different things. Sometimes I'm not happy to be left on my own. It's my job to communicate that with the staff. And also it's important to be clear about what you expect the space to be like, what is okay and what is not okay. So I find it really useful to have a frequently asked questions sheet. I share this by email with the organising member of staff, and I ask them to share it with the staff. But I also have a copy that's laminated, and I have that next to me so that any new members of staff can view it, can see my frequently asked questions, which will help support them to. It helps them to support me because I'm sharing with them my needs, my expectations, and giving them a bit of a background of what they can expect in the sessions. Another thing is to clearly explain with the children before you start every session what they can expect from the class, what they can expect from you, and what you expect from them. And you might find my rules guide a really helpful starter here. I'll share that in the video description below. It's a freebie that you can just download and use straight away. It's my rules and how I manage them. But I share at the start of every session what children can expect from me and the session, what it's going to look like, and any rules that I have. My last point is don't be afraid to talk to your contacts in school. It can be tempting to just come home and complain to your partner or feel really down about what's happened, or like internalize it and think, oh God, I'm so rubbish, this didn't work. You know, don't do that. Contact the school and let them know what went on for you, and let them know how they can help you in future, or chat through some ways that you can solve this together. So working in schools can be brilliant, it can be challenging, it can be inspiring, it can be confusing, it can be all of the things, but you don't have to do it alone. So make sure that you're in my free community, which is School Yoga Teachers. That's a Facebook group. So if you're on Facebook, come and join my free community where we chat through all of these situations. Check out some trainings that I have that may support you in your journey. I have one about structuring your planning, which is called Structure for Success. I've got one about using props effectively. I've got one about managing behaviour. I've got a resource pack and training called Captivate with Cards, which is like a whole process that you can use in your classes and the resources of using them. And if you feel like you'd like some personalized support, if anything I said today really kind of made you feel seen and you'd like some more of that, I do one-to-one sessions, either just for an hour or for 90 minutes, or I do 6-month mentoring packages. And if you are in a mentoring package, then you also get free access to all of my other trainings and all of my other resources for free. So if any of that sounded good, check out the links in the description box below. If you found this video helpful or useful or interesting in some way, please subscribe, because it helps me to know that people are seeing the videos, and also it helps other people see, it helps more people And really, I want to foster a community with kids yoga teachers where they feel seen and heard and supported. Make sure you're signed up to my mailing list too, where I share all of this weekly. Thank you for watching and have a brilliant day.